Hey, welcome back to the About the Later podcast here at VikingsTerritory.com. I am BJ Reidell, back here with my guy Drew Mahowald, and we're back to our regular scheduled programming this week. Obviously, last episode we talked with Chris Kluwe about punting for a full 60 minutes somehow, so we did not get into our NFC North ranking. So we'll continue that this week with offensive line as a unit. We also want to talk about Mackensie Alexander since we kind of missed out on that train. Obviously, Matt Benzel published a great article on that, talking about how his kind of character development. So Drew and I will discuss that a little bit here. And then we'll have the Take 5 at the very end. I'll tell you what we're doing for that at the end of the show. And the last thing I want to talk about is just kind of competition within camp. Can it go too far? All that kind of stuff. It's just a topic that I want to discuss today. So we'll get into that towards the end of the show as well. But to get things started here, like I said, Chris Kluwe's on the show last episode, published on Tuesday. If you haven't listened to it, it's excellent stuff. And I say that despite the fact that I hardly even talked in the episode because Kluwe was the one talking for the most part. He did an exceptional job. I know that special teams isn't really the most exciting thing in the world to a lot of people. But
he made it exciting, though.
I was just going to say that. I think he did make it very exciting. And on top of that, this is stuff that you should know. If you consider yourself more than a casual football fan and more than a casual Vikings fan, I think it's important to know every phase of the game and kind of understanding how to evaluate the performance of each phase. And like I said, both on the last episode and throughout our show, punting and kicking, it's just not easy for us to evaluate. There's so many little details that can go wrong. There's so many things we don't know. And there's just so much going on that we don't pay attention to because we're just watching to see where the ball lands and how fast the returner goes with it. So I think it's really important for people to listen to things like Chris Kluwe did for us last episode, because he really did a great job, and particularly like flopping, for example, talking about how that's literally something they practice and they work on. Yeah. It's an art form. I think it's interesting stuff, and maybe you disagree with me. Quite frankly, I don't really care if you listen to that show because we're on to this episode now. But at the same time, I highly recommend it. Chris Kluwe was a great guy, and I've seen a lot of people have a problem with listening to Kluwe because they have a problem with Kluwe the person, and that's fine. I'll be honest with you guys. I didn't love him as a player. I didn't love the situation with Mike Prefer, but he's a human being. He's a nice guy. He's providing us with information, and if you listen to that episode, he's hilarious and he's genuine. You can't get much better than that. You got to put your pride aside at this point, because if you hate him because he said some things about an organization that you like that did him wrong, the Vikings did him a disservice to some degree. Yeah, he had a right to be angry. So, hate Kluwe, love Kluwe. I don't care. I like him. I think he's a good dude, and like I said, I thought he did a great job. So, Drew, what's your major, one or two major takeaways that you took from the discussion we had with Kluwe, and then we'll jump into the Mackensie Alexander stuff?
Well, yeah, I think you kind of started, the conversation about when, there were several people that, would respond to us.
I thought that was so strange. We got 6 people specific. We can't get you guys to comment on anything, and you go out of your way to tell us you're not going to listen because Kluwe's on there. Does that mean you're listening all the time, by the way? Does that mean you listen to every other episode? Because that's great.
Probably. Right. Yeah, and it's just people, they say, well, Chris Kluwe's on. I'm not listening to that. Well, it's like you're holding a grudge on a situation that, sure, it was ugly at times, and, there was obviously some backlash and stuff in the situation, but this was, 4 years ago? 5 years ago?
This was like 10 years ago. This was a really long time ago now. Not exactly 10, but this was close to a decade ago.
It's
guys,
it's
I
so
hadn't
long
even gone
ago.
to college yet when that was going on. Are you not a completely different person since the last time you encountered Chris Kluwe? And first of all, nobody knows him. Don't pretend like you know Chris Kluwe.
That's the thing, too.
It's absurd to me. It's just... Yeah. I don't actually care. This is more for an entertainment-styled rant because you guys seem to like it when I talk shit about stuff.
I don't really care either, but, it's... I think the thing I'm most taken aback by is how stubborn and close-minded some of these people are, that they think, well, there's this situation that, my favorite football team was put in a negative light because of this guy several years ago. So because of that, I'm not going to listen to a show which the guy doesn't discuss anything near about that topic at all. He discusses pure football from the perspective of an 8-year veteran in the NFL who really clearly knows what he's talking about, and he loves to talk, obviously, and he's really good at explaining things. And I mean, I was thoroughly entertained, and I was thoroughly educated throughout the entire episode. So, I mean, it sounds like I'm just doing a big advertisement here for the show, but if you haven't listened to it, you will learn a whole lot more about football than what you know right now. So
once again, Drew and I just kind of posed the questions, and I bounced a couple jokes off of him because I think he's a funny dude. For the most part, we didn't really do anything.
No, we didn't do anything.
That's the least I've talked in a 60-minute period on this episode, on this show, ever, for sure. Because we were just posing questions, kicking stuff around with them. I mean, no pun intended there, but it's...
Oh, good one.
I don't know, man. I think that Chris Kluwe did an exceptional job. Again, if you don't like him, I don't care. I'm not going to judge you for it. I'm just telling you, it's worth listening to for the informational thing. I mean, I didn't like going to school when I was in high school. I didn't like the teachers. I didn't like a lot of the kids. But they had stuff that I wanted sometimes, so I listened to them. Maybe you're not a special team person.
You use that analogy today to respond to someone on Twitter, and it's perfect.
I'm bringing it back because sometimes if you want to learn something, you got to learn it from someone that you think sucks. It's subjective. But the statements that he made are factual, objective statements. There's nothing Kluwe about them. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we've discussed this long enough, but you guys get my point. Again, we're not judging you for hating Kluwe. We get it, but I don't know. If you like Drew and BJ, we're still there. We're the ones that are kind of driving the show. He's talking about it, basically fluidly giving us information. I don't know. I just don't think that you should ever choose a person to not do something. I mean, do people not go out on Friday nights when they think someone's going to be at that bar that they're going to go to? Because,
I really hope not.
Again, that's just not how you should live your life. And I don't mean to tell you... No. I do mean to tell you that you shouldn't do that, but, just whatever. I don't really care. I find it kind of entertaining to discuss, and that's why we're still talking about it, but...
That's why you're still talking about it.
All right, let's move on to Mackensie Alexander then. You called me out. You get the W there. Mackensie Alexander... considerably less personable person to talk to. I had a little one-on-one with him at training camp last year, and he kind of an asshole. But this is about football. I don't care if Mackensie Alexander is the biggest asshole in the world. I'm trying to learn about the cornerback position. I'm trying to shore up the nickel position. And most importantly, I'm trying to do my best to give you guys the information that you want, that you're not privy to on a day-to-day basis. So, Mackensie Alexander, Drew, you're the one that came up with this topic, the reason why we're discussing on the show. Start us off.
Well, the article from Matt Vensel in the Star Tribune, I think it was about a week ago now, maybe a little bit longer that it was released.
It's been a
and the article, it goes into kind of how Mackensie Alexander is, he's matured, he's grown up, he's now willing to learn from Mike Zimmer and willing to take on this slot role. And, whereas he admitted in last year he wasn't very kind of welcoming of Zimmer's teachings, and the coaching staff's teachings. He wasn't, I guess, really, to put it kind of bluntly, he wasn't a team player. And so I find it odd and kind of coincidental maybe, or ironic, that suddenly this nickel spot opens up, this opportunity for Alexander to play, and all these snaps and get this big role opens up, and now all of a sudden he's all willing to learn from Mike Zimmer and willing to play, be a team player and willing to do all these things for the team. So it's I mean. And I've always been on the side of skeptical with guys that are young and still have a lot to prove. And Mackensie Alexander is one of those guys. But I just think, he's getting a lot of praise for this, and I understand it, but there's a different side to this that, we can't just be praising the guy for this new mindset when, there are other things involved, like individual accolades that I'm sure he's yearning for as well.
Well, I mean, once again, we're not there. How could we have to take the information that we're given and come up with a take from it. And what Drew's doing here is basically saying, I'm not going to believe every word that you guys say. Which, guys, Mike Zimmer has been caught lying 3 times. Caught lying. So we know that he doesn't want to tell certain information to the media, to the public, because he doesn't want to deal with the backlash or just what the truth would mean, or he doesn't want to deal with us discussing it on Twitter like idiots, like, period. You guys understand what I'm saying? So he lies sometimes, and this is a perfect opportunity to lie, because anyone that has a negative perception of Mackensie Alexander, and there's a lot of you guys, whether it's his personality or the fact that you don't think he can play slot, there's a lot of negative stuff swirling about him, and Mike Zimmer just simply took an opportunity to just be like, all right, well, it's done now. He's good. He's good to go now. I mean, he seems like a different guy. I mean, guys, it could be the truth, but Mackensie Alexander's been the way he is his entire life. He was the same way at Clemson. I just don't. I haven't changed in 5-6 years. I don't see how a guy that is that arrogant and kind of that self-absorbed egomaniac type, just all of a sudden is just the most humble dude in the world. So, Drew, I'm with you here. I'm skeptical of it. At the same time, I've said this before, I love Mackensie Alexander. I think he's an excellent football player. He was one of my favorite cornerbacks in the class last year. Again, it has nothing to do with his personality there, just his skill set, his ability to play the position. The biggest thing for me, and this has to be true because he's literally doing it now and he wasn't last year, is he talked about how he didn't want to play slot because he thought he was an outside guy, and he kind of had a welcome to the NFL moment where it's like, dude, you don't get to call the shots anymore. You're not a 5-star recruit here. You're just a dude. And I'm going to tell you where you're going to play, and if you don't want to play there, you're not going to play. So that little piece, that means something to me. But as far as him having this, like, emotional awakening type crap, I'm not buying it. Sorry.
No. I mean, I'm not trying to say he's not a talented guy or, whatever. I still question if he could just suddenly become in and fill Captain Maryland's shoes, without any problems. But,
personally, too, right? Like, fill his personal shoes, like, in the locker room and stuff, too? That's kind of...
Well, yeah, I don't think you can really fill Captain Maryland's shoes. Like, he's a small person, but I'm sure those shoes are pretty big to fill, So
there's your pun now, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
1-to-1 now.
Right, yeah. But, I think from what I saw on Twitter, there's the praise was very prominent, and I don't think it should have been. I think it went overboard. Yeah.
It's popular opinion.
That was my take. Right.
Anytime popular opinion strikes a group of people that are, and I really don't mean this negatively, but tell me it's not accurate. When a popular opinion strikes people that are either not fully informed or kind of like partially informed because you guys work 40 to 60 hours a week, you don't have the time to go through Mackensie Alexander's life, it's easy to just believe the coach. I mean, why wouldn't you? I get it. I'm just saying, when popular opinion hits Twitter, hits the masses, and generally speaking, the masses are not overly educated, especially in little intricate things like the slot corner's personality, people are just going to buy it and run with it. And I'm here to tell you,
you're explaining Twitter in general about any topic whatsoever. So,
what we're basically saying here in so many words is, we're not saying Mackensie Alexander is not a good football player. We're simply saying, maybe don't listen to everything you hear, especially on Twitter. Especially when people are breaking news, by the way.
It's the same thing as Laquan Treadwell. I mean, for me, you see all these videos and workout things he's posting on social media and whatever. It's the same exact thing with Cordero Patterson, too, last summer. These videos don't mean anything. I mean, NFL players mean, all around the league, all around the country are working out in the offseason. I feel like that's usually what they should be doing as professional athletes making millions of dollars. You should be working out and trying to get better in the offseason. And just because Laquan Treadwell posted on social media and it goes viral, it doesn't mean that he's all of a sudden doing that much more than the next guy. I mean, the same thing happened with Patterson last summer. I was like, guys, that doesn't mean anything. If he shows it against real competition in training camp, then we'll talk.
Treadwell,
but this doesn't matter.
The thing with Treadwell is that it was never about work ethic with him. I mean, remember when we were at training camp, you and I were both there. He stayed for an hour. Him and Diggs chilled for about an hour and a half, and then I left. I left before both of them because I didn't want to be there anymore, and I was reporting on it. And it's not a work ethic thing with him. It's more of a character issue thing from what I can try to understand, and it's also just kind of a growing up thing. He's 21. I mean, 21-year-olds, right. No offense, Drew, you guys are stupid. Like, you guys do stupid stuff. I remember being 21. I did stupid stuff. It's how you are when you're that age. There's a maturing process that until you get to 25, you're not fully you yet. So, of course, there's going to be some crap that kind of goes on with his personality and stuff. But, guys, it's still about separation. It has nothing to do with work ethic, personality, whatever. It's about separation and knowing the depths of your routes. That's what killed him last year. Not how hard he worked, not how hard he trained, not whether or not he can work out for 8 seconds on the video. He couldn't create separation, and he couldn't get to a 12-yard depth easily. He didn't know what he was doing.
Right.
That was the problem. We're not solving that in the video.
For both guys, it's just show me what you can do on the field in training camp and in preseason, and then eventually in the regular season, and then eventually I'll buy into what you're trying to sell me.
I don't think we're arrogant either. We're not too stubborn to admit when we're skeptical of something and it proves that we were skeptical for no reason. I feel like we've done a fairly nice job of it. Not only admitting to our mistakes and the things that we say that are incorrect, we openly admit to them, but I don't think that we're arrogant for no reason. I don't go to imright.com and just stay there. If Treadwell puts up 1,500 yards this year, I'm not gonna say he's crap still. We just want to see it. Yeah. This is about the labor. We want to know, what goes into the baby. That's what we want to know, and we're not seeing that because we're not there. So, sorry, we're just not we're not the right podcast to listen to if you're looking for Laquan Treadwell hype or Mackensie Alexander hype, because
if you're looking for unlimited optimism and without any, I guess with no holding back, you're not going to get that here. I think that's pretty clear now.
72 episodes deep, and I think I've been a cynical asshole for about half of them at least. Yep. So I think you guys are probably pretty clear on that. So no reason to go any further with that. But just take it with a grain of salt. Anything that comes out of Mike Zimmer's mouth, just think about it a little bit. Just think about it.
Right.
Leave it at that.
Think about why he would say that.
And how it might benefit the bigger picture, which is what Mike Zimmer cares about only. That's it. The big picture. Yep. So think about that. Moving forward here, let's get into this subject that I want to talk about. I'm calling it overkill on competition. So this is something I briefed on Twitter today. So I kind of killed the point already. I hate doing that because Twitter is such whatever. But here's what I want. Here's what I want to discuss a little bit here. Every single time a new player becomes available, whether it's Jeremy Maclin, Eric Decker, Dennis Pitta, even I went there. Whoever it is, someone wants him. Someone thinks that the Vikings need to bring him in, and that's fine. I'm not here to tell you that Eric Decker's not a good fit in Minnesota. He's a Minnesota native. There's a great storyline there, but the Vikings have 7 wide receivers right now. If not,
so they have 12
they have more, but they have realistically 6-7 guys that are going to be competitive for spots here. There's no real room for that, and the more important thing here is people love to say, well, at the worst case scenario, it's going to drive competition. Guys, not everything works. It doesn't always work like that. Just because you put more people in a room doesn't mean that it becomes more competitive. First of all, it's more. I mean, if you play football, it's more about the guys you're with that amp you up or bring you down or whatever. It's not really about. It's never about the multitude of people. Like, I don't get that. But
the thing with Eric Decker is like you can say, oh, he wants to bring in, or he can bring in competition or whatever. Like, that's the last thing Eric Decker wants to do right now is be a guy bringing in. I mean, that's there for competition. He deserves way more than that. He deserves way more than that. I mean, given his career, given his accolades, and given what the Vikings have for a receiver group right now, Laquan Treadwell is right now the third receiver. Like, he expects at the very least to be receiver 3 in that group. So, bringing him in for competition, that's not going to.
He was Demarius Thomas's sidekick in Denver. Then he goes to the Jets, and for 1 year he's the guy. Then he becomes Brandon Marshall's kind of partner in crime, I guess. Right. He's not looking to be a number 5, which is
right. Which is what people seem to think is going to work. Which I don't know. I don't get that. But
people here, let me say this real quick. When a contract is signed, there's more that goes on than just the guaranteed money negotiations. There's a personal aspect to it where the coach says, hey, we're bringing you in here to be X. We want you to be the starter. That's your goal. That's what we want for you. We want you to come in here. It's probably what they said to Emmanuel Lemur. We want you to come in here and be a spot starter, a capable backup, a guy that can step in if Anthony Barr goes down. They laid this stuff out for him. So if Eric Decker flies in to Minnesota, meets with Rick Spielman, what do you think he's going to say to him? All right, we got Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen up top. They're our number 1 and our number 2. We drafted Laquan Treadwell last year. We're hoping that he's going to be our number 3 or our number 2 or 1 at some point. And then we just signed Michael Floyd, who's been a number 2 his entire career. We're trying to revitalize his life in Minnesota currently. But if you want to jump in and be like a 3, 4, 5 guy, yeah, we'll pay you like $2 million, no guaranteed. Do you really think he's going to say yes? Like, guys, just common sense, logic, use football, apply the stuff you learn. You've been watching football longer than I have, likely. Just apply the stuff you learn. Decker doesn't want to be here either, with exception to the fact that he's from here. That's probably the only thing that would make him want to come to Minnesota. It's not a good destination because there's not room on the depth chart, and putting him in there limits the reps that Michael Floyd, for example, would get. Like, instead of getting 15 reps per day, he's getting 11 now. Guys, Michael Floyd needs every single freaking rep he can get because not only is he out for the first 4 weeks of the season,
presumably.
So he needs to prove himself right freaking now to make the team. He doesn't know anything yet. When they asked him about Sam Bradford, his response was, "Oh, yeah, I saw that he throws a nice ball." Guys, he doesn't know his quarterback. He needs to take these reps. Like, this is something he needs to do.
Neither does Rodney Adams. Neither does Stacey Coley. Yes. Neither does Bucky Hodges. Neither does Laquan Treadwell, really. I mean, besides some practice throws last season. But Treadwell hasn't played with the guys.
Guys, they need those reps. The players that are here already need the reps that you want to hand to Eric Decker or the reps that you want to hand to Jeremy Maclin. Guys, if you want Laquan Treadwell to get better, if you want him to improve, he needs to see more action, which is probably why he was working with the first-team offense and 3 wide receiver sets during OTA so that he could get more like situational offensive touches. If Decker comes in, you limit that. You're hurting his development. You're hurting Michael Floyd's adjustment. You're hurting Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs' 1-2 dynamic by bringing a guy that wants to be within that.
Right.
You're hurting the team by bringing in excess competition. So my point in all of this, and this is literally the only thing that I wanted to drive home today with this, is there is such thing as too much competition. It exists. So when you fall back on we're just trying to create more that's not how it works every single time. Sometimes we're trying to create the best team possible, which is actually all the time. And
utilizing all your roster spots equally.
Doing the best with what you got so you don't turn into the Saints and you're in cap hell for 15 years. There are so many little factors that go in that just don't make it that simple. And, it kind of bugs me, I'm not going to lie. I'm just getting very sick of it because I'm like 5 years deep on Twitter. Every single guy. I mean, we need to learn from our mistakes. Like, if you do something once and it doesn't really go well, probably not do that again. So that's my point here, is that there is such thing as too much competition.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. This was kind of your spotlight section
my
here.
Rant piece, yeah. I haven't done a rant in a while, so.
Right. So this is good for you. It's good to get off your chest. You have a lot more energy than I do for this podcast, I think.
Yeah, we are recording at 1 a.m. right now because,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of my fault because I had to watch the finals game.
Kind of your fault.
I was at a friend's, so it is my fault. Not kind of my fault. It is my fault. So, but yeah, no. I agree with what you're saying. I think that the one thing, if you really want to be upset at someone for this whole Decker thing and not coming to Minnesota, be upset at the front office for drafting essentially 3 wide receivers in the NFL draft and then adding Michael Floyd on top of it to make literally 0 room there for Eric Decker. So that's all I have to add really to your point.
That's a good way to sum it up. We don't need to force anything extra. I think that point is pretty clear, and that's all.
Right.
That's all for that. So, next thing on our agenda here is ranking the offensive line in the NFC North. I mean, it's been about a week since we've done this, so quick refresher. Literally, Drew and I are going to rank the top offensive lines in the NFC North, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll talk about it a little bit, give a little breakdown why we think that is, and then we'll move on to the Take 5. So, Drew, offensive line, you could discuss the positions within, but as a whole, we're grading this as a 5-man unit. So, starting with number 4, how's this breakdown for you?
Well, I think this shouldn't be. I think our rankings are going to be pretty similar, if not exactly similar, because
it's pretty cut and
dry. I think offensive line is pretty. It's pretty. It's right there in front of you. It's pretty easy to kind of look at and evaluate it. The Vikings are 4. I think they were arguably the worst in the league last year, and obviously they signed Reif and Remmers this offseason to shore up kind of improve
Band-Aid?
the bookends.
Band-Aid?
Yeah, lightly banded with those little tiny circle ones over like a shot, over like the little wound that you get when you get a
do you mean the Band-Aids that you absolutely never should buy? Like there's just no reason
to. Right. That's what they did. That's what they did for the bookends. So, there's a lot of work to do with the Vikings offensive line. I'll say that. The fact that they are last in the NFC North is pretty telling, at least in my opinion. Number 3, I have the Bears. I think a lot of my respect for this Bears offensive line goes to Cody Whitehair, a former potential Vikings draft pick that a lot of us kind of liked. And he would have been really nice to have last year. And unfortunately, the Vikings passed him and drafted Laquan Treadwell and got 1 catch and 11 yards or 15 yards from him. Which,
and you guys wonder why we're cynical about Treadwell. When
Laquan Treadwell has 15 more receiving yards than Cody Whitehair does in his career. So that's what I'm going to. I'll end my Bears offensive line take on that.
Thanks.
Number 2, I have the Detroit Lions, which I think the Lions and Packers are very close here as far as offensive line, because I think that what the Lions have done over the last couple of years and adding some guys in is really, really good. Taylor Decker and Ricky Wagner at tackle. That's a rock solid duo right there of young and powerful. I guess
established as well. I think Taylor Decker's probably already established himself.
Right. Decker had
he came up. He burst. He kind of Matt Khalil this rookie year.
Right.
Hopefully,
he did, and but that gives a negative connotation. But for those, I assume most of us know Matt Khalil had a phenomenal rookie season. So, and Ricky Wagner again, a well-known kind of mauler at right tackle, so he gives some balance there. TJ Lang, that guy's. We know how good TJ Lang is as Vikings fans playing against the Packers for so long. He's the most reliable pass blocking interior offensive lineman maybe in the NFL, with exception to a guy or two in Dallas. And then Travis Swanson center too is another guy that he's another extremely reliable guy for Detroit. So their number 2 and number 1 is Green Bay, just because that duo at tackle, that between Bakhtiari and Balaga at tackle, it's tough to beat. So Green Bay is number 1. And obviously it sucks to say that, but the Packers are the best offensive line in the NFC North, from my opinion. So
yeah, that's ranking the Packers at number one is about in this position. It's about as close to fact as we're going to find here. I think that the fact
I mean Detroit close,
got better.
Close.
They got better, right? But it's one of those things where you expect Ricky Wagner to be really good.
It is. I mean, it is speculation too a little bit. That's kind of why
it's not set in stone like Green Bay has been for the last 3 years. I believe Bakhtiari has been arguably the best pass blocking tackle in the NFL, other than a guy named Tyrone Smith. So
another Dallas Cowboy.
Yeah. So I mean, Drew and I's lists are actually the exact same. So I mean, I'll save you the kind of the step-by-step breakdown and just kind of go into my thinking here. Minnesota number 4. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. I feel like you guys knew as soon as we announced the segment where Minnesota was going to be in relation to the rest of the North. I mean, straight up, the best player on this offensive line right now is Riley Reiff, number 1, which is good because thank God he's your blindside protector. It's good to have your best player be there.
I'd still put Alex Boone as best lineman.
Boone, yeah.
Well, Berger.
It's the point. The point is the Vikings have no superstars on their offensive line. Pat Elflein has an opportunity.
No stars. They don't have any stars, let alone superstars.
Exactly. Yeah, Pat Elflein has a chance to be kind of an immediate, very good player. I'm just not ready to call him that before he touches U.S. Bank Stadium in the flesh. So, Vikings are number 4, clear as day. I mean, you guys know that. Number 3, Chicago, and Chicago's better than Minnesota because, for one, Josh Sitton is really, really good.
Yeah.
That offensive guard. The Packers and Josh Sitton must have gotten into a holy war or something like that because there is no good explanation for why they just let him walk to, Packers fans hate Bears fans probably as much, if not more, than Vikings fans. So why would you do that to yourself unless something really weird went wrong? Because this guy is very good. So he's kind of, I would say that Josh Sitton is kind of what keeps him and Whitehair, like Drew mentioned, are the two guys, and Kyle Long. My God. Kyle Long, the fact that he gets kind of lost because he's playing on a team that's not good is it's reprehensible, really, because he's so talented, so personal, so good at life in general. You got 3 really good players right there. I think you could make an argument for Chicago having the second best offensive line. The reason for me why they're not, their left tackle, Charles Leno, is garbage. He is a step above TJ Clemmings. My good friend Aldo Gandia, back when we worked together, we talked about the things that bugged us the most about our teams frequently, just because we're aired out type people. And Charles Leno's name came up far too often, especially on a team like the Bears that had so many more problems than Charles Leno. He's not good. That's, again, most important position on the offensive line. You can't have that, especially when the 2 teams above you have very solid blindside protectors. So Lions are number 2. Like I just said, Ricky Wagner's kind of up in the air, but you expect to get some really good stuff from him, and you expect him to be a very good player for the foreseeable future. I've said this before, TJ Lang is a guy that I absolutely hate because he's that guy. He's just, I'm still kind of disappointed that he didn't end up in Minnesota. I thought he would have been a great fit next to Alex Boone because of that Mauler mentality. Just that I don't give a you-know-what about anything mentality at the offensive line. That's what makes him so great. So you add 2 high-upside, high-floor players in Wagner and Lang to an offensive line that, you lose Riley Reiff, obviously, but you replace him essentially with Taylor Decker. You flip him over to the left side. It's a guy that looked like he's going to be a bona fide stud in the NFL. Looked like they hit on that pick. So their bookends are great. Lang is excellent on the inside. The 2 question marks, Travis Swanson and Graham Glasgow, they're playing the two positions that there's a lot of room for error. Center, you don't have to do a whole lot beyond snapping. There's no lateral movements. You just block right in front of you for the most part. And then guard spots are kind of interchangeable. I mean, there's a reason why Joe Berger has been able to move around all of them. Brandon Fusco, obviously, a little bit different scenario there. But Point being here is that these are the easiest positions on the offensive line: left tackle, right tackle, center, left in the guard position. So that's why the Lions come in at number 2 instead of the Bears, because they are shored up at the left tackle spot. And then obviously the Packers. I mean, the Packers were, people say that Dallas was so far beyond everyone else last year, and they were. I mean, this was a generationally talented offensive line. Don't get me twisted here. Like, I'm not saying that there's great correlation there, but in terms of just tackle play, Green Bay is right there. Like, right there.
Oh, yeah.
These are Bulaga, which is a guy that I wasn't high on immediately when he got in the NFL, but he has progressed and gotten better every single year. And it's once you kind of hit stride at right tackle, there's nothing really new about it. Like, the position itself is fairly, like, once you get it, you got it. It's simple enough because you're not facing the number 1 edge rusher every single week. You're more intended on blocking and run blocking particularly. So it's not as difficult once you get it. And Bulaga's, I mean, these two guys, they've got it. And Corey Linsley is a guy that gets kind of passed up because of those two guys. Excellent center, 5th round pick. I mean, this is why Ted Thompson gets to keep his job over and over again. It's because every couple of years, he might pick a Detone Jones in the 1st round every once in a while, but then he makes up for it by drafting an all-pro center in the 5th round. Corey Linsley is absolutely outstanding as well. Don Barclay, the guy that I think it was Lane Taylor actually that replaced Josh Sitton. Both of those guys, again, at the guard spots, not great, but they're not liabilities. They're not Vikings. We're not talking about what the Vikings had last year with Fusco. They're not, and they're strengthening the guys around them. I think this is really very straightforward stuff. The Green Bay Packers are just the most complete offensive line, and I mean, let's just be real here. Like, it probably shouldn't be a factor, but because Aaron Rodgers is so good at manipulating his front 5 and just kind of moving around within them, and he has, I swear to God, it's unbelievable how he stays on the same page with his tackles despite their backs being to him. He just kind of moves around them, and I mean, they pass protect for 7-8 seconds sometimes because they're just on the same page, and that's that championship pedigree right there in a nutshell.
And still being able to be on the same page while Rodgers is moving around, scrambling like that.
He's the hardest quarterback to protect for in the NFL, by far. You never know what he's going to do, and he doesn't, he's a magician. Like, I mean, you don't know what a magician's going to do, so they have to work on the fly, and they're damn good at it. That is a great, great offensive line. It's one hell of a battle for the foreseeable future here with that offensive line with Vikings defensive line. It's just that right there is
that's
just
fun.
That's worlds colliding right there. So I think unless you got any final takeaways on the offensive lines in the NFC North, I think we can move on to take 5 here.
I mean, not really, because I think the potential the Bears have with those. Especially with Whitehair, again, I mentioned him a lot. I think with Whitehair and that potential Chicago, you can argue that there's 3 top half of the league, top 16 units here in the NFC North, and the Vikings are down in the bottom 5.
2, 3, 4.
Right. I mean, yeah.
They were definitively the worst of the franchise history last year.
Right. I mean, if you're thinking, I guess by looking at kind of how these 4 teams rank in the league. I think Green Bay's up in the probably 2nd behind Dallas.
At least top 5, yeah.
And then you got Detroit top 10, probably right around the 10. And then I think Chicago's right about in the league average. So
if you plop in a good left tackle there instead of Leno mixed in with the Sitton, the Whitehair,
then they're for sure top 10.
You're looking if you put Riley Reif on that offensive line, let's say Chicago signs Riley Reif, that offensive line it's exponentially more complete just because guys,
it is funny.
It's not. He looks like Charlie Johnson. Remember Charlie Johnson from the Vikings? Man. A little bit undersized, couldn't move his feet, couldn't get his hands up. Charles Leno looks like a reincarnation when I watch him on tape.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because the more we do these rankings and things, I was high on the Bears at tight end and receiver, and it seems more and more like I'm kind of not falling in love with, but I like the situation for Glennon and Trubisky more than I thought I did, which is weird. But not that I say I think they're going to have a bunch of success or anything, but I think, especially for Trubisky,
I think
he's got some underrated pieces. I think that it's not all terrible. I don't think Trubisky's any good yet, but he does have some things to work with.
I mean, they've been building for 2-3 years now, so there has been development. I mean, thank God it's taken a while. I think Bears fans are probably not thrilled about the snail's pace that they've been moving at here, but they have been getting better. Bringing in Josh Sitton last year, but just on a whim, that changes the dynamic of that offensive line in itself. You think about that group so much differently just because he's in there. Again, if one of those 3 wide receivers that we talked about, Ruben Randall, Kendall Wright, and then who was the other weird?
Victor
Cruz. One of those 3 guys gives you something, to their kind of their potential level, their ceiling. That's it. And you sign 3 of them, and you get the best case scenario out of one. The Bears won. Yeah. The Bears win that situation there because they're paying all those guys virtually nothing. So, are the Bears good? God,
no.
They probably won't win 4 games. They'd be lucky to win 4 or 5 games, I think. But to say that they're not heading in the right direction, I think would be either a biased Vikings fan take or just kind of being an asshole. Like, they're clearly moving.
They're not the Browns. They're not the Browns,
no,
which the Browns are obviously catastrophic levels of bad. But the Bears are definitely not heading in that direction.
I mean, if you look at their secondary too, they basically I don't know. I still cannot believe they didn't draft a cornerback. If they had gotten one of the number 1 cornerbacks in this draft, that secondary starts looking really good too, which is something that we'll get into when we get into cornerbacks and safeties a little bit further down the line here. So I guess still make sure you're still selling in Chicago. Don't get us wrong here. Like, we're not saying Chicago is good. We're just saying look at some of these building blocks and kind of imagine if they are able to. Ryan Pace is kind of able to figure out how to do the draft at some point in his career here. They could add a piece here and there, and all of a sudden they'd be a 9-10 win team if Trubisky pans out the way they like. So I guess don't sleep on Chicago. Still bury them because they're not. I mean, if the Vikings lose at Soldier again this year, you'll know that they're cursed.
Man.
But point being here is they're heading in the right direction. So if we do have any Bears fans listening here, I don't hate your team at all. And I'm in love with your defensive coordinator, which you'll learn about twice during the regular season when we talk about Vic Fangio's 3-4 scheme at that point. So from there, let's move into this Take 5 here. Final thing on the show, as always, during the off season. Today we're doing the most painful moments within our from our vantage point. So obviously, once again, Drew and I are relatively younger people, so we're talking about since 1998 is about when we can kind of be cognizant of what was going on and kind of really feel emotion based off of what was happening. So we came up with our top 5 list, and Drew, I'll let you kick us off here.
Well, for me, number 5 is going to be the 98 the Gary Anderson kick, and that's because I was like 3 years old or something, and I don't really remember the specific game, but I've felt the heartbreak over the years while hearing about it from other people. So I mean, I don't have the firsthand testimony from it, but just I don't need to say that much about this because everybody knows, there are much more experienced fans, I assume, listening here, and that they kind of went through it and they know. So that's my number 5. Number 4 is actually the first Vikings game I remember watching, and it was the 41-0 against the Giants in that NFC Championship game. I remember because I was my first jersey I got as one of those like JCPenney's ones. It was a Chris Carter one, and I had that on with a friend of mine and his dad over with my dad and me, and we were just so pumped to watch the game, and the Vikings it was over after 20 minutes of the game. So and then number 3 is the end of the 2003 season, I believe it was, when the Vikings started 6-0 and they missed the playoffs because of Nate Poole and his 1 foot without the force out rule or whatever. That was very confusing for an 8-year-old who thought you had to get 2 feet in. I was so flustered There were definitely tears.
Nate Poole went down in history that day.
Well, it was Luke McCown and Nate Poole, and it was
Vikings lore forever.
Paul Allen's call, by the way. Paul Allen's call.
Probably his most legendary call, to be quite honest. I mean, that's probably, from a national standpoint, that's probably the Paul Allen moment that everyone knows about.
The epitome of the Vikings fandom, too. So, number 2, Blair Walsh, wide left. Wide left 2.0, essentially. Teddy Bridgewater brings the team back. They're in a position to win against a favored team. At
a very good team in Seattle.
Oh, I know.
It would have been epic.
At minus 10-degree temperatures, a 27-yard kick to get a playoff win, and the Vikings would then go to Arizona, a team that could very much beat. And BJ's hands are in his face as I explain all this. But that was tough. And I remember sitting on my couch watching this happen. I literally had no expression on my face. I was like, yep, that just happened. Of course. And then number 1 is the NFC Championship game in 2010 with the there's a lot of miscues that happened over the course of that game that the Vikings.
I'm going to include multiple on my list here. So
I'm done. That's it.
Obviously, the most painful moments in our Vikings fandom isn't really the most thrilling topic to discuss unless you're, outside perspective, laughing at our pain, which I would suggest laughing at pain is a lot better than crying about it, in my personal opinion. So let's start off my list here. I've got... And I did this pretty quick, so, if we missed some stuff, I'm sure we did. Vikings history is packed with tragedy, so I'm sure we're going to miss a couple here, but these are the ones that really jumped out to me as being just the kind of loss where you go to bed right after the game, or the type of moment where, you just...
Or you just go get ice cream and eat it for 10 straight hours.
Yeah, you just you do the man version of crying. You know what I'm saying? You guys know what I mean. You guys have done this before, where you do everything you can to not be a bitch.
The life just gets sucked out of you, and so you just
there's
no more. You have no more reason to live for that day or that week, so you just kind of just do the least amount of living you can, basically.
Yeah. So all right, so. I have 7 on here. The Arizona moment that Drew referenced, obviously iconic for Paul Allen. But that moment for me was one of those things where I was very young. Obviously, I remember it. I've watched the game multiple times since because I love to apparently hurt myself and just, I don't know. I've watched that game way too many times, but it's just that moment for me. It was 2003. I was born in 1991, so I just didn't have, I didn't have all of me there. So that's why that one ranks in my honorable mentions here. The other honorable mention for me is the 1998 kick for Gary Anderson. Like Drew said, obviously it's the most iconic, shit moment in NFL history, pretty much. It's the thing in terms of tragedy, the worst case scenario. A team that should have gone 16-0, a team that was at the time the best offense of all time, a team that was
kicker that hadn't missed a kick all year.
Yeah, it was just it was like a movie. It was a climactic scene where it's just you expect one thing and just you get railroaded. So that's an honorable mention for me. Again, I was born in 1981. So 1998, you can do the mental math there. That's why that's in my honorable mentions here. So let's get in my top 5. Starting with number 5, I'm going to go with the Joe Webb loss. And here, the reason why this one, this is in the playoffs. Joe Webb against the Packers, where the Packers absolutely just totaled the Vikings. The reason why this one crushed me so much is because I was at week 17. I was hyped when the Vikings came back and won that game and lose 37-34 on the field goal after Peterson ran for 199 yards, came up 6 yards short of their all-time record. You guys know all that stuff. So the Vikings did all of that and then just got stomped in the most important game of the season. Obviously, this was at the point, this is probably peak Ponder. Everyone was finally starting to come around on him. He gets hurt.
Yeah.
Joe Webb comes in. You've got the those people who were like, well, Ponder's trash, Webb can't be worse. Guys, this was just... There was barely a quarterback on the field for that game. That was one of the worst games, and I watched it in a log cabin after I'd been snowboarding all day with my buddies, and I was cuddling with my buddy, kind of holding each other in our arms, sad when that game was over. So that one really crushed me because I was so amped, and I genuinely thought the Vikings had an opportunity to win again at Lambeau.
Yeah, I never thought they had a chance in that game, to be honest.
So
I accepted that loss. Yeah,
I was probably overly optimistic after the just unbelievable game previous, and that's kind of why this moment ranks in at number 5 for me. Number 4, the Josh Freeman game. This is the Josh Freeman game for me.
Freeman game.
That is my 41-0. Because, again, I was very young during the 41-0. I wasn't all there. The Josh Freeman game was about as close to that I've seen. It was worse than San Francisco in 2015, week 1.
Yeah.
It was just definitively the worst. It was the worst quarterback play in Minnesota, which is saying something. Guys, this is Tavares Jackson land. This was the worst quarterback play.
I believe Freeman is the only player to ever throw more than 50 passes in a game, 50 attempts, and have less than 200 yards.
Yeah,
think about that yards per attempt.
I don't think he even hit 20 completions either. I think it was 38% completion. I mean, you guys remember this game. It was trash. It was the worst. And, I mean, again, it's one of those things where Josh Freeman comes in. We're all kind of getting excited because Josh Freeman was this kind of high-potential quarterback.
He was good.
He was good.
2 years ago.
And... Guys, we ended his career. That was it for Josh Freeman.
Yeah.
So he probably hates that game more than we do, but that one will live in infamy for me as personally, that is the worst game the Vikings have ever played, and that includes the Seattle blowout 2 years ago. That includes the 49ers blowout. This was the single worst football game I have ever personally watched the Vikings play, so it is number 4 on my list. Number 3 here, the fumbles in the NFC North Championship game in 2009. It was like a higher power was taking the ball out of the Vikings' hands in that game.
How many was there? I think there was
4. There was 4.
6. There were 6 total. 6, I think they lost 4.
They lost. Yeah. So. Again, this is my. I've said this before. This is my favorite game of all time. I've watched this game probably 40 times. I've charted it probably 3 different times. I love this football game. So every little detail about it, I know it at this point. And those fumbles, I just can never explain it. I mean, you can always explain the Adrian Peterson ones because it's clearly him holding the ball out here and just being an idiot with it. But the Bernard Berrien one, the Percy Harvin one, the one after, Chris Kluwe talked about on the last show, where Vikings forced a fumble and then just immediately handed back. It was there was a higher power that was we don't care how good you are, you don't get to win this football game. So, those fumbles, you can't explain what happened there. 4 different guys, all just worst ball-carrying performances of all of their careers right there. How does that happen? Fatal, that's something that people go suicidal over. That was a horrific ball carrying performance. So that comes in at number 3 for me. Number 2 is Blair Walsh. Obviously, I mean, guys, this is the most recognizable contemporary Vikings fall to pieces moment, with exception to, I guess, falling in pieces after starting 5-0 last year. There's no way to explain it. There's no good reason for why that kind of stuff happens. There's no good reason why Mason Crosby could hit from 56 3 consecutive times, and Blair Walsh, the guy that holds the NFL record for most consecutive 50-plus yard field goals and the most 50-yard field goals in a single season, the only kicker in NFL history to reach double digits without missing one. His rookie season 2012, 10 for 10. Misses the chip shot of a lifetime. It might have been closer than an extra point. This was just... It
would not have went through on an extra point attempt.
When they lined up for that kick...
The old extra point, they would not have made it.
When they lined up for that kick, I was already trying to figure out which booze store I was going to go to. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just... I'm lost for words. I mean, that's the perfect kind of way to explain that moment. It sucked the air out of not just the stadium, but I was in Bismarck at the time. It sucked. Bismarck is dead as it is. It was never more dead than in that moment right there for me. And then number one, you guys have heard me yell about this. You guys have heard me complain about this. You guys have heard me chastise the guy. You guys have heard me literally, I can't get over the Brett Favre interception to Tracy Porter. When I am 70 years old, this is going to be the moment that I'm talking way too much about to my grandkids. That they were like, Grandpa, we know. That moment for me will live in infamy. And honestly, it's kind of the driving force behind my fandom as well, because it's the reason why I want that Super Bowl so bad now, because I could almost feel it, I could almost taste it, and that was when I was really getting into not just Vikings football, but just football. That was when I could really start to feel that we had a shot. And
the Vikings would not have lost the Colts in the Super Bowl.
No,
the Colts were not very good. They were a bad Super Bowl.
Destroyed the Colts because they matched up very well with them as well. But again, it's one of those things where it's more explainable than the fumbles because Brett Favre is going to Brett Favre. That's just kind of what he does. Why wouldn't that happen with Brett Favre? It creates the conspiracy theory that he came over from Green Bay to ruin our lives even more. That moment, I don't know Tracy Porter. I probably will never have an opportunity to meet him in my life, but I cold-blooded hate that guy. And when I'm not...
He had the pick six in the Super Bowl 2 weeks later, too, didn't he?
He made his next 3 contracts in about 6 hours between those 2 games because those were the only 2 good things he did in that entire postseason. Like I said, if you guys want to see my charting, he got blown up that entire game. But in the moment that mattered most, the one moment that was going to define that football game, if Sidney Rice catches that ball, Longwell puts that through. I don't care. He doesn't get Blair Walsh. Longwell puts that ball through from 35. No doubt. It was going to happen if Sidney Rice catches that football. But Tracy Porter hops in front and it's the reverse of the Greg Lewis play. It was just so baffling. It was so... Why did I start to believe in this? Why did I think that this product was going to be something different than it always had been?
We haven't even mentioned the 12-man in the huddle. 2 plays before or whatever that was.
They did.
That's a catastrophic coaching blunder or communication blunder that should never happen in the first place. And the fact that happened in that time.
Guys, the Vikings lost by 3 points in that football game with 6 fumbles, a 2-minute drill pick. They had an opportunity to win it in overtime, but they couldn't stop them. They tried to lose that football game, period. They did everything within their power.
They dominated the game.
Absolutely. If they weren't fumbling the ball, they were scoring. Bernard Berrien was good in that game. Do you remember how terrible Bernard Berrien was in a Vikings uniform? He was relevant. Percy Harvin was electric. Sidney Rice was doing his thing. Adrian Peterson, with the exception of the fumbles, which is his career pretty much, great game. Favre played a solid performance. He matched with Drew Brees.
The bounty, too. We haven't even mentioned that either. The bounty
I don't even care about the bounty stuff because it all could have been avoided by one of those fumbles not bouncing into a Saints player's hand. That Favre pick, if he just falls over, I feel like Longwell probably kicks that one through. I'm saying literally trips over his shoelaces. Something ridiculous like that. That's all that needed to happen. Point being, that moment will live with me forever as just... That is my Vikings moment where that was when I was baptized. Period. For a Vikings fan.
Right.
That was
the fact that we completely ignored the 2016 season here.
Yeah.
Season that started 5-0. The season where, the Vikings were playing at an all-time elite level for 5 weeks, and they finished 8-8 looking like scrubs. We didn't even mention that. You didn't mention it at all because of all this other stuff that we talked about. It's
funny because there are more. We didn't even talk about the 4 Super Bowl losses because we weren't around for that stuff.
Right.
But I mean, like,
with Drew Pearson, Hail Mary, or the 2013 season was full of these just little mini like microcosms of what it is like to be a Vikings fan. Because I remember this 2013. If games were 59 minutes long, they would have been 10-6 or something like that. Like, what is that? Why is that?
How does that stat happen? Like, guys, I'm not a big religion guy, but if there is a higher power, he's working against the Vikings daily. Like, there's no explanation for the stuff. There's no rationalization. There is no logic about the labor style communication with this stuff. It doesn't make sense. And that is what it means. That's literally, accepting that is what it means to be a Vikings fan. So, as painful as all that stuff is, we have our community because of kind of this stuff. I mean, I love complaining about the stuff with you guys, and you know, it's fun to cry together. So we'll leave it at that there. We're about over an hour now, so that is, unless you got anything, Drew, any final?
I got nothing.
Okay.
That's an excellent way to end the show, you know.
All right, then. So
perfect.
That is it. Next week on Tuesday, when we get back here, we will move into, tight ends? Are we done tight ends? Yeah, I believe it'll be.
No, we did tight ends already.
We did tight ends. Okay, so we'll move on to the defensive side of the ball next Tuesday. So we'll start with defensive ends, defensive tackle, nose tackle, basically the defensive line. We'll start talking about that, and then we'll come up with something else as well. So that's next Tuesday. Keep following us on Twitter, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Play. You guys know everything by now. I mean, I don't even know why I keep recording this shtick every single week, because it's the same thing. So thanks for listening. As always, hopefully you enjoyed this show. And once again, if you didn't already, check out that Kluwe show. I really think that he did a great job breaking down one of the most complicated positions in the NFL, whether you like it or not. So thanks for listening, and we will catch you back next Tuesday.